Apparently, you're allowed to drive a race without a rear bumper. With a caveat, you have to start the race with a rear bumper. Since my last car cheat racing video did so well, figured it's time to do a few more of my favorite car cheats. And we'll start with 1982 Daytona, NASCAR. And this was the famous, what they call bumpergate. Now, Allison won the race with his Buick Regal. Yarborough complained endlessly that this was completely illegal. But what had happened was, in tech, their rear bumper was determined to be too low on the car. So right at the last minute, they re-welded it in the correct place on the car. And as they went out early in the race, apparently Yarborough, because they go nose to tail, tapped him, and Allison's bumper just flies off into the wall, which then causes the first caution of the race. And cars, like 3 cars crashed out because of this. And they clear the bumper away. But Allison keeps running. You can run legally without a rear bumper, apparently. And then proceeds to start running away from everybody. And has to have fewer fuel stops. And isn't drafting anyone. And runs the entire Daytona 500, pulling away, eventually, 23 seconds in the lead without drafting. Now, the cars could go maybe 100 miles between fuel stops. And he was well over 100 miles for the final stint. And he wasn't drafting anybody, which should be impossible. So apparently, what's believed is that they figured out that the car was more aerodynamic without the rear bumper. The bumper was causing drag. And that they made it fall off on purpose to win it. Now, the win stuck. That is still an official win for Allison. And I think it was his second win at Daytona of like 3 that he had in a row. But Yarborough insisted that this was a cheat. And all the evidence points towards it. Now, their crew chief, Gary Nelson, there's a video of him going, "Oh, I had no idea." And it's about the funniest thing if you watch. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that happened? Oops." He would go on to become the chief tech inspector for all of NASCAR later in his career, right? It's like letting the fox into the hen house kind of a thing. But of course, you want one of the great cheaters, which he was known to have been a great improviser of the rules, to be the tech inspector because he knows where to look for the cheats. But Bumpergate lasted for years, and people were like, and it's still uncertain, but quite certain that a bumperless NASCAR goes faster than one with a rear bumper. Apparently, you're allowed to drive a race without a rear bumper. With a caveat, you have to start the race with a rear bumper. My next favorite, now we switch to Formula One. And with one of my favorite teams, Tyrrell. In 1984, we're running the only non-turbocharged car. Now, a lot of cars in Formula One were moving towards turbocharging, but they were running the old Cosworth V8 with no turbo, mostly because they couldn't afford the turbo technology. And they had to find a way to interpret the rules that might help them keep up with the turbo cars. It's completely fair, right? And here's what they did. They had a water injection system that blew water over the trumpets of the intake to help with the breathing of the car, to cool the intake or whatever theory they had that they thought the car was going faster. But it had nothing to do with what it was actually designed for. A couple years earlier, Brabham and Williams had been busted for their water system. Their water system was for cooling the brakes. And they put water tanks in their cars. And the brakes, as they drove, they had a button that could fire water and cool the brakes. Completely legal. But they would finish the race hundreds of pounds lighter than anybody else because they had dumped all the water on the track. So Tyrrell took a page from that book and went even a step farther with it. They had a tank on the car for this water injection system, and which they were burning off a ton of water. Now, the thing is, they would just dump the water at the beginning, which allowed them to be much lighter than the turbo cars and made them slightly more competitive. Now, they weren't like crushing the season. They weren't a threat to anybody winning the championship, but they were trying to keep in the business. For a few races, they pulled this off. And what they were doing was they would come in, the car had to be at weight at the end. They had learned the lesson from the earlier cars that they weighed the cars afterwards. Is it at weight? Yes, the cars would come in at weight. Okay, everything's fine. How did they do it? Well, you're allowed to put water back in the car. You're allowed to refill those tanks. When they refilled the tanks at the end, they put 2 gallons of water in, which had 140 pounds of lead shot inside of it, under pressure. And they would fire into this tank, and 140 pounds, poof, and then they would go off and finish the last few laps of the race, hopefully in the lead. And they did pull this off a couple of times. It was genius until that pressurized water has a vent, because eventually the pressure builds and you want to be able to get out, otherwise you'll blow the tank up. Out of the vent shot some of this lead shot, and the guys in the other pits were like, anyone to explain? Wait, were you next to Tyrrell? Yes, I was next to Tyrrell too, and we found some of this stuff. So eventually it came out. They were putting it in there. The inspectors come over and they're like, all right, what are you doing? Tyrrell, beautifully, was like, this is completely legal. I'm like, how is this legal? You know, you have ballast, unsecured ballast. They're like, it's secured. It's in the tank. They're like, well, you're supposed to have a tool, special tool, to remove any kind of ballast. Yes, that special tool takes the tank out. And they kept coming up with it. Now, the FIA didn't want this car. Now, the conspiracy theory is it was the last of the non-turbo cars, and they wanted all the cars to be turbo, which they would be in a couple of years. That they penalized and attacked Tyrrell to make sure this car was done. And they eliminated, they took their points away for the rest of the season, which then ruined their next season because you don't get the travel money for 85. So it basically ruined Tyrrell. It was a punishment, I think, a little too far. Because their claim was, they were like, well, okay, the ballast is secured, but we found aromatics in the water. That means it was a second fuel source being sprayed over the carburetors. And the first time they tested it, they found 27% aromatics. The second time they tested it, they found 1%. And it's like, this is a little curious. But that was how they busted them. It's like, see, you had a secondary fuel source, you had illegal fuel lines and the ballast, and they hammered them. And poor Tyrrell paid the price. But what a beautiful cheat. Never would see it. Everything was fine. It's that invisible cheat that makes them great. Probably the most elegant, beautiful, engineered cheat of all time, and a lot of people know this one, was in 1995 World Rally Championship, the Toyota Celica GT4. Now, the GT4 was a really cool four-wheel drive Celica. It was a cool-looking car. Toyota insisted they use the Celica for rally, mostly for marketing purposes. It wasn't the ideal rally car, and even the Toyota team knew it wouldn't be at the front of the pack. So they had to come up with something brilliant, which they did. Now, these cars had turbos, and that was the look of the day. Like, everybody had these cool turbos. The cars were pushing up closer and closer to Group B specs from back in the 80s. And if you haven't seen Group B, go look at Group B. Cars were bonkers. But they give enough time, usually engineering starts covering the same ground, and they eventually start getting back to the crazy speeds of Group B. FIA's all, nope, we're going to put restrictors on your turbos. And what that does is it restricts the amount of air going into the turbo, and it keeps the power of these cars down around 300 horsepower, which is still a lot for these light little four-wheel drive cars. Toyota was like, yeah, you know, maybe we need maybe a little more horsepower. Let's see what we can do. And here's what they did, and it's genius, because great cheats are invisible. In most racing series, they take these cars apart and inspect them a lot after races. The tech guys tear them apart. Tech guys tore this car apart multiple times. Never found anything. And officially, they never found this cheat. The word is a snitch kind of got it out and snitched on the team. But the FIA inspectors never found this. What they did was inside, so the turbo's got this restrictor on the front of it, and it restricts the air. And then you put a hose over it, your intake hose. Everybody's seen turbos, you know, with the big, beautiful, colorful hoses going over the turbo and all that. Same thing as back in the day. Hose goes over it. You get a couple of hose clamps, or as the British say, Jubilee clamps, going around it that hold the hose onto the assembly. And those hoses, we sometimes have metal collars around them to kind of reinforce them. So none of this was anybody would draw any attention to. What they had done inside the restrictor, because you were allowed to build your own restrictor. The restrictor had 3 Belleville washers. And Belleville washers, they're used a lot on Porsches, are these kind of domed little washers. They're spring washers inside of it. And the function was that when you put the hose on with the clamps and you tighten the clamps down to tighten the hose down, as it squoze it down, the restrictor plate would move away 5 millimeters from the turbo, allowing air to flow around it. 25%, they figure, about 25% more airflow, which equaled about 50 horsepower. And 50 horsepower on a 300 horsepower car is a lot. It was so elegant because the trick was you loosen those Jubilee clamps and you slide the hose off, it pops right back into place. So the inspectors would be like, well, there it is. And they'd measure and everything's fine. They put the hook and it moved, it'll slide out. Completely invisible. Absolutely stunning. And so beautiful that the head tech inspector disassembled it on television to admonish Toyota, but really came across more of a fanboy thing, that he was kind of like, this is really cool. You got to see what these guys did. And it worked. It could have worked the whole season. And just like most cheaters, when they get caught, they got busted for that season. And they were actually not allowed to compete the next year in 1996 because of how obvious. And it's also the embarrassment level of the association. WRC was like, no, you guys are done. Just Toyota's done for a while. But that has to be mechanically one of the most elegant cheats of all time. Some racing cheats are serious engineering and brilliant thought. And some are just hillbilly funny. And my favorite, and of course it's attached to NASCAR, right, was Tim Flock, 1952. And back then, these were stock cars. These were just big sedans that they're running. And so they're not terribly fancy, but they did have to have roll bars in them. Roll bars weigh a lot of weight. That's who cares about the safety? That's a lot of weight there. So he famously built his roll cage out of wood and then painted it to look like steel. And no, I don't care. I mean, they got a seatbelt on. I'll be fine. I'll get thrown out of the car, whatever. Absolutely the most ridiculous. And it's not like this man had done a whole lot of serious things in his career, because probably what he's most famous for was Jocko Flacco. Jocko Flacco was his pet monkey, who holds the record for being the only animal to win a NASCAR race and the only NASCAR co-driver of all time. He'd have a monkey in a cage in his car racing in NASCAR. And it was kind of like the big gag that he'd have. But there's a monkey in there. And the story goes that at one point the monkey got out during a race and is like jumping all over him, because it's a monkey in a race car. You imagine, the noise of a NASCAR, the smells, and going around, sliding around. This monkey is freaking out. I guess attacked him and scratched him. And then you're there trying to get the monkey back in its cage. That has to be, that's not cheating. Obviously, I think that's the reverse of cheating, is having a monkey in your car. But still, one of my favorite all-time NASCAR stories, Jocko Flacco. So continuing with NASCAR, and my second favorite funny story has to be NASCAR, is Ken Schrader was a NASCAR driver, and he was doing short track racing. And the story goes that he was driving and he was winning and doing really well, but he realized that his tires weren't going to last the rest of the race, and second place was closing in on him. So in a moment of genius, and I don't know if it's technically as cheating or not, he took his fire extinguisher, put it up by the front window, up by the firewall, and fired it off to make it look like his engine had blown. And he's just blasting the fire extinguisher out the window. Enough that the second place guy was started backing off, going, oh, okay, I got this in the bag. He's going to blow up and pull off to the side of the road. And he did it. He just mashed the throttle, firing his extinguisher, saving his tires, and actually ended up winning the race with his fire extinguisher in hand.
I'm super pumped to announce that in 2024, VINwiki is partnering with Bridgestone. So throughout the year, you're going to hear some great stories from their business, some awesome tire testing and things like that we're going to do. I've had a lot of Bridgestone and Firestone products over the years and loved them all. I know that you will too, but I want you to check out their Potenza line of tires for sports cars, supercars, and hypercars. Whatever your needs, whether it's ultimate track performance, road performance, or all-season performance, there is a Potenza tire for you. So check them out at the link in the description below and let us know what you think.